Welcome everybody to another eye opener. This is Market Wealth Daily's quick little video chats we do with top traders. We got Blane Markham here. Blane, great to see you. You are having a crazy busy day. I know you got a big event coming up this afternoon, and we are going to steal you for just a hot second here because you've been on fire lately. Your picks have been amazing, and we are heading into a crazy week. This week is kind of nuts. We got uh, big earnings week coming up. So that's got a lot going on. We got the tariff stuff going on again. Just another flavor of it. And the market is changing its mind on how it's going to react to this almost every day. So a lot to sort through here. But based on the fact that you have been so successful in the picks that you've been sharing with us, I really want to get your 2 cents on all this and see what you're looking at and see what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, just appreciate you having me here again live for this Monday morning's eye opener. So excited to be here, and yeah, you're too kind talking about some of the recent trades. Just the market's been playing along, so that helps out. That goes a long ways. But yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting week. With the markets, they're facing a lot of new data this week, like you said. The tariff whack-a-mole game kind of just came back. We think we solved something on trade front one area, and then it pops back up in five different places, and it's just like, all right, well, and what are we actually supposed to do with this? Because it, keeps getting delayed and, pushed back. And so, seemingly right now the markets have, kind of begun to understand that, at least for now. Maybe that's the wrong read by the market. Who knows? Only time will tell. But, for now, it seems like, until some of the tariff talk is actually put into place and enforced, and those tariffs are starting to be collected. It seems like right now, investors in the market are largely looking through it, and it's still somewhat of an uncertainty and overhang for stocks. But at this point, markets are seeming pretty tame to it. Not getting too freaked out. Not seeing the peak uncertainty, certainly like we saw back in April. So that's certainly been good to see. And that's evidenced just by last week, seeing the S&P, again, be able to, edge out just barely, a new all-time high. You can see that in the chart right here. We just barely were able to edge out that new high just by a couple points on the S&P, but still, is a great continuation and follow through by the market, seeing those stocks break out, again to new all-time highs and continue to do so for a little over a week afterwards. So, of course, in today's trading, largely muted, John. I think
Mhm.
that's, largely an effect of just, how much events are packed for this week, and the data, we are really kicking off Q2 earnings reporting season this week in a really big way. It really gets underway largely tomorrow. A lot of the major U.S. financials are really kicking things off. But just a ton of significant large cap companies starting to report this week. So with that, also some of the economic data I think investors are just kind of taking a pause here. We pulled back a little bit last week. It was an understandable, a bit of de-risking going into the weekend and into this week. Stocks were clearly short-term overbought. You can see that in the chart right here. Trading above the upper Keltner channel for almost 3 weeks. Continuously there. And again, that's replicated down here in the relative strength index chart. You can see several just incredibly red hot readings on the RSI. Typically don't stay up in that nosebleed territory for too long before you get a bit of a pullback. Just a little bit of consolidation, a little bit of retraction before ultimately, continuing the current trend. But I think that's what we're seeing right now, John. Just investors are kind of putting the brakes on, pausing a bit, before, they finally get some of these results. So, if we start getting to earnings tomorrow, results are better than expected. We have really strong results. I think it's very reasonable to expect, the trend to continue, and, stocks, continuing to break out to new highs. So we'll just have to see what the data shows. I think that's largely what's going to be moving stocks this week. You have a lot of noise with the trade news, as we were talking about, but I think this week the real key is going to be what's going to come in the fresh data and these updated earnings from these major large cap companies.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. So, really quick, I'm going to ask you a question, a little bit selfishly for myself. When you're seeing the overbought situation where we're above that top line in the Keltner channel, and you're seeing the RSI and the overbought status, and then you see it start to pull back. What's the key to look for? Is this just a kind of reset? Are we kind of getting back into the comfortable place, or is this starting to become a reversal? Are we starting to see the signs of things starting to turn around?
Yeah, well, great question. And one thing I'll just say, just to be very clear off the bat, the trend underlying this market is still incredibly strong. We still have, all the significant technicals pointing to a confirmed, still valid long-term uptrend. We can see that with our 50-day and 200-day moving average here. There's several other ones that I like to track that are even shorter term, a little more reactive. Those are still signaling a very strong trend. You know, again, we're only a few points away from the all-time high too. So it's not like, we've had some massive pullback. It's only pulled back, maybe a
Right.
percent at most at this point. So, we're still hovering right near all-time highs, just, starting to come in a little bit. And, generally when we get, we trade in overbought territory for a substantially long period of time, usually you get that pullback and it's really just a reversion to the mean. So, we often look for stocks to pull back somewhere closer to this middle Keltner channel line right here. That'd be our dotted line. And so I'm
Hmm.
looking somewhere in that range, right around, probably 6,200, 6,150, somewhere around there. And I think that's, also supported by several, just resistance levels that are now, have flipped to support levels for stocks. And, that would be this level right here, which would be the previous old highs that we set back in mid February earlier this year. That was a key level of resistance for stocks. Found resistance there, but of course now, just a couple weeks ago, the S&P's broken out through that level, and so now that's flipped to a floor of support. And then again, also too, even below where I was just talking, it'd be around 6,050. So call it 60.50. So somewhere in that range. I'm not expecting a significant pullback. It certainly could come in a little bit, but you have several layers of support under stocks right now. And I would think, those are likely going to start coming in play. But, again, the trend is still very strong. There's been significant signs and other indicators I look at that we're starting to see some broadening out, which is, that's truly the lifeblood of bull markets. You'd like to see that. You're going to have your leaders lead, have them come in a bit, some rotation occurs, rotate in those other sectors of the market, start, pulling up, rising tide lifts all boats, right? So it's that old saying.
Yeah.
So, I think we're starting to see a lot of signs of that. And so just expecting more of a minor pullback roughly to that area, but still great trend underlying this market.
Yeah. Good to know. Good to know. So what's got your eye right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I've really been harping on so much really in the past couple weeks, even though, stocks were really overbought, particularly in this sector right here, but it's the tech stocks. These are the leaders. These are the ones that have really been showing, the greatest amount of relative strength. And, we've been saying this is where, you do want to start focusing. That at least that's where like myself and our team here, we're focused, whereas in the tech sector, you can see the incredibly strong outperformance there. This is a chart of the XLK tech sector ETF. So this is the tech spider ETF. And so you can see again, it was significantly overbought, pulled back below the upper channel several occasions in this, latest bullish thrust here as it was breaking out to new all-time highs. But again, John, we've touched on this one a lot recently. This is where the relative strength is in these market leaders. This is where stocks are outperforming the market largely. So still targeting right here. And you can see in today's trading, we kind of got this trend beginning into late last week, but some of these leaders were cooling off just a little bit. They were coming in, which is to be expected. They can only, set new highs day after day for so long before, they do take a bit of a chance to cool down and consolidate. So I think you're seeing a bit of that here. They well off their lows for today. You can see a nice bullish hammer pattern setting up there. So this, could be just a very brief cooling off period by the looks of that candle. Of course, you don't get a signal on that candle until roughly the end of the day. But, based on today's trading, that's really encouraging trading news. You see they traded down to roughly 252.5 on XLK right there and quickly rallied back off of those lows. I mean, we're only a few hours into today's trading session. You can see they're back near session highs for the day. So, really good looking setup there. Be monitoring that one pretty close. Just to see if it continues to come in a bit, or if we start to see a bit of a reversal off of the intraday low today. But keeping my eye in that sector right there. But John, I want to specifically, to talk about an individual trade. Whereas, kind of 10,000 foot view, I'm watching the tech sector still for a lot of opportunity. There was more of kind of a surgical setup today, and it was actually found by a tool that we've developed here at the Hughes Optioneering team, and it's a just incredible indicator we've developed. It's called the Patty indicator, and it's based off of one of Chuck's more traditional technical analysis models, his power churn model, but it's been souped up a little bit. It's really refined in. It's got a couple extra things into it that are really looking for even higher probability buy signals. And one that it found this morning really stood out to me is this one right here. It's actually for Welltower Inc. So this is an REIT. They focus primarily in medical housing, mostly senior housing, things like that, outpatient care. So you can see right here, this candle right here is showing today's trading action, and you see this green up arrow right here below it. So that's signaling we have a buy signal according to our Patty indicator today for Welltower. And what's even better is what you can see in this lower study down here. So we can see this really tall green bar, and what this is. So this is, of course, the price action of the stock, giving us our, main buy signal right here. But down here, this is a really neat feature that we've added in here. We call this our momentum radar. And what this is doing, it's actually quantifying and measuring the momentum underlying these stocks and underwriting the trends on these stocks. And it's showing you whether it's, really truly strong and gaining momentum, or if it's, there's a buy signal, but maybe it's not quite the strongest buy signal. Well, you can see this one right here. This, we're starting to see this kind of bit of a green wave forming right here. That's exactly what we want to see when we're looking for a fresh buy signal. So we, of course, want to see a buy signal in the day, but we see it paired with this green wave down here on the Patty indicator. That is signaling that the stock has incredibly strong and building momentum. And this is really a buy signal that we're going to want to target. So I spotted this one, right after they opened this morning, and I was like, man, that is one awesome looking buy signal. So I went ahead and hopped into the options chain just to see, what was available, to see, how I'd look to target it. And I landed on this one right here, John. It was the Welltower August 15th, and specifically the 145 strike call. It looks like it's about 5 cents higher than what it was earlier, but currently at 13.50. It was at 13.45 just before I hopped on the call with you. But here it is, put into the call option purchase calculator, and you can see, of course, it meets Chuck's 1% rule. So if you were following the traditional power churn method, for a bit of a longer term trade, this strike would meet that criteria. And then right here, you can see, take a look at some of the outsized performance this call option would be set up to produce, as you get a ramp up here in the stock price change scenario. So you can see, if the stock were to increase by 3.5% come option expiration, well, you're sitting on near a 32% return. But look at some of these bigger scenarios here. Look at right here, if in the event where Welltower were to increase by 10%, you would have a nearly 108% return on your hands with this trade. So that was a very attractive looking call option opportunity, especially paired with what I was seeing there in that Patty indicator. And that's actually something I'm going to be talking a little bit later on today about quite a bit. So would highly encourage folks to join me later on for that one. But that was the trade I found today, John.
Yeah, that's a really nice setup. I love when you pull the calculator up and you can see that, what do you got? You know, we got 7 like potential ranges for that thing to perform, and 5 out of 7 are very generous. I mean, I would never complain about a 26% gain, and you only need a 2.5% move on that to make that pay off.
Right.
And then all the way up to 100 if you get just a 10%. The thing does perform with that kind of momentum that the Patty indicator is showing. That thing is a skyrocket. So this is what you're going to be talking about this afternoon, right? So this is a chance for people to go in and see this thing working, with you driving it, showing all the bells and whistles. Really great opportunity. We're going to put a link to that in there, to make sure people can see that presentation, whether it's live or in a replay. So definitely going to put a link in the email for that, and we'll be keeping a close eye on Well to see how it performs. Love getting these picks from you, Blane. Again, you've just been so on top of the winners and really had a good streak for us. And that's what we're looking for, folks, right? We're all looking for ways that we can do a little bit less work and get as much or more benefit out of the market when we're trading. So these quick video chats do a great job of bringing that to people. Blaine, thanks for sharing that. That's what makes it possible to put these in people's hands.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you for having me here, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to come and present this morning. And exactly right. Yeah, we're obviously, you're looking to try and find trends that are working and find stocks that are moving up, right? Everybody's trying to try and make a buck in the markets, and that's what all these tools that we've created here at our team, that's the one mission that ties them all together, right? We're trying to help people, add some really productive tools to their trading tool belt, find some great success in the markets. That's what it's all about. So,
Yeah.
that looked like a great setup there for Patty. It's an extraordinary trading indicator and tool that we've built. I mean, some of the results we've got from it are absolutely fantastic. Again, I said, we're going to be speaking a little bit about that later on today. Super excited to share some more about it. This was just kind of just a taste of it right here. But that was a great looking setup. So would love to see everybody join me later on for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll put that link in there. Thank you again. Everybody take care and good luck trading, folks. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.